The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone!
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention when you were just talking to me. Do you think that you could repeat the question? And I listened more attentively. There must have been something in all of that nothing that wasn't quite so easy to see.
Wow, Facebook actually worked the way it was supposed to today.
No way.
And we point that out because that has never happened.
Who did this intro for you?
Melvin Taylor. He's from Lowell.
Okay, really good.
He put it on his album, and he came into the show when I was on CAP with his guitar, and he played it. And said, I put this on my album for you. I wrote a song.
Really?
Yeah, he wrote the song for the show.
Oh, wow.
He usually comes to the Bash every year and opens the Bash with this. Although we can't get people to do the ba-ba-bas for some reason. All right, we got a big show today. We should probably get going, huh?
Whenever you're ready.
I just feel like such crap.
Oh.
All right, let's save some time and start the show. Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan here with the Paying Attention Podcast. Hi atop Two Guys Smoke Shop at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. We're talking all Lawrence today, and I've got a great guest in the show. I really wish he could come in like once a month because he's such a great guest, and he's such a wealth of information about what's going on in Lawrence. With all the time that we spend together, I've never actually asked you what your official title is because titles don't really impress me that much. But what is your exact title working for the city?
Well, I'm the senior advisor to the mayor on policy and external affairs.
All right, try putting that on a...
In a brief one, I'm the mayor's senior advisor.
All right, cool. Get your wires caught on your mic here. So just pull your mic up a little bit so you can hear a little bit better. So we got Octavian Spanner here from the Lawrence Mayor's office and whatever title he just said. It was just way too long for me to remember. But before we start, and we also have somebody zooming in. We're going to be talking about how the Lawrence schools are going to be regaining control. The city of Lawrence is going to be regaining control of the Lawrence schools. Right now, the Lawrence schools are under the abysmal management of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They're in receivership, and it's going to be going back to the city of Lawrence. And, you know, we've talked about this on the show before. The city of Lawrence did a horrible job running their schools, which is why the state took over. But the state has done a worse job since they took over. So, I mean, giving it back to the city can't make it any worse. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what the changes are going to be. Before we start, I want to thank my sponsors, McLennan Real Estate. We got to get Matt in here. The real estate market has changed significantly since the last time he was here. So we're going to have to have him in to talk real estate maybe in a couple of weeks. Not next week, though. Next week, we got a really good guest next week. And it is Lawrence City Councilor Stephanie Infante, and that's going to be a really good show. She is somebody who has been involved in a lot of things in the community. She was actually here as a guest once, representing the Greater Lawrence Voc to talk about their adult programs, their adult vocational programs, and she was such a great guest. I was hoping she was going to come back and do that again, and then she left that job and ran for city council in Lawrence and won, so we're going to have her back to talk about that. I also want to thank the Zany Pesci Law Office, Marsan and Son Construction. I understand Ronnie Marchand's running for city council. He did pull papers, so hopefully we'll get him on the show maybe like right at the end of the summer when it can actually do him some good during election time. EIS, Investigation and Gun Training, Borelli's Deli. Now, they didn't send me the sandwich of the day for tomorrow. I'd give you a preview. And I don't get mad when that happens because I know they're so busy and they've been trying all the changes and everything going on over there. The food is just so amazing that you can't get mad at them no matter what. EIS, Investigation and Gun Training, we mentioned them. Tomo and Shaken Seafood, Clear Path for Veterans New England. We found another veteran last night at TMF. I called Randy this afternoon. He's going to be meeting with that veteran, and hopefully by the end of today, that veteran is going to be off the streets of Lawrence and have a place to live and be getting the services that he needs. So thank you to Clear Path, Randy Carter, Jason Gilbert. And we should have them on the show again, too. The Doug Mercurio Law Office, AFC Urgent Care. Don't go to Holy Family and wait 3 hours to see a doctor. Go to AFC Urgent Care. Don't go to Lawrence General Emergency. Go to AFC Urgent Care. They're in Methuen and North Andover. I went there 3 times in the last couple of years. I was all 3 times in and out in under 15 minutes. And I mean like in and out. Like I went in, I told them who I was, I filled out the paperwork, and in under 15 minutes I was seeing a doctor and I was walking out the door. So AFC Urgent Care is the place to go. Pleasant Valley Landscaping, Dave Idconsoli. We mention every week that we got to get him back, but we haven't gotten him back yet. So with the summer here, maybe this is a good time to talk about landscaping stuff. And he's pretty knowledgeable about, like tax things and what's going on in the city of Methuen and all that kind of stuff. So he's always a fun guest. And a free shout out to our buddies at JG's Ice Cream. See how hot it is today? Huh? You see how hot it is? I don't leave my office unless I have to. Today I had to because I had to be here. First thing I thought of when I walked out the door and I got hit with all that humidity was, after the show I got to stop at JG's Ice Cream. They're right down the street. So before we start with the Lawrence School Committee stuff, there are a couple of things going on in Lawrence that I wanted to ask Octavian about. So I'm working on a story, and I'm going to break it here. I'm working on a story. Another publication kind of broke it, but she only had part information, that we have in Lawrence at the police station, we have someone who is the domestic violence coordinator who set up what looks to me like a fake nonprofit to get more money out of the city through grants for her nonprofit to deal with domestic violence stuff and kids stuff, and put down other city employees on the paperwork, but lied on the paperwork and said that they weren't city employees in order to get the funding. Do I have any of that wrong?
Yes.
Okay, please tell.
Yeah, well, not totally, and I'm not, Tom. I'm not here to specifically talk on individuals. I can make certain comments because it's still under investigation. I would like to start by saying that we managed to follow due process with all honesty and integrity during the process. We had approximately 51 applications, of which some of the applicants were rejected because of lack of information. I think I made it public before the city council, in which I mentioned to the city council, the councilors, there were 2 applicants that we believed that might have been, we had questions in regards to conflict of interest issues, because they were city employees, and pending, we requested the city council to approve all the applicants, or at least those that we were basically sure. Or
when I watched the meeting, it looked like you were saying was, we want you to approve all of them except for these 2 because we still have questions.
Exactly.
And the one I'm talking about is one of them.
Yes, correct. So we obviously we continue our process, and I want to basically tell your listeners and also your viewers that we were very much satisfied, the mayor and myself being involved in the process, that staff has done their due diligence, and we were very satisfied based on the way they evaluated the different applications. But we had one of our staff members that called me, and she said that there are additional questions that that should be raised with the applicants, and that's exactly what we did. We contacted the city attorney. We asked the city attorney to review and also investigate. His suggestion at that time was that it is not our prerogative. I mean, it's not our responsibility to do any investigation, but the applicant should call and contact the Ethics Commission and find out if there's, conflict of interest.
That really sounds so convoluted.
Well, that's the process that, even though they are city employees, but they also have the right to be forming part of civic organizations and boards. However, since, we identified that some of the applications were incomplete, and the information was incorrect, we decided to at the end to pull that application, set it aside, and send out a letter rejecting.
It seems to me if you're a city employee, no matter who you are, if you're a city employee, you shouldn't even be eligible for city grants because this person is formed what I would consider a fake nonprofit after it was approved by the council. The paperwork was submitted from the dates that I've looked at, and it looks like they're just trying to get more money from the city when they're already being paid to do that as an employee of the city. And it seems to me no matter who you are, if you're a cop, a firefighter, whoever you are working for the city, you shouldn't be double dipping. I mean, it seems like double dipping to me, and I'm not using that as a legal term, but it just seems like if you're already getting paid to do something, we should be paying you again to be doing it in your so-called off time, because we all know what happens. They start doing it on their on time, and now they're getting paid twice.
Well, you know, we as city employees, as public workers, we have the right to participate. Not only the city of Lawrence, you have it across the board. That people, you know, in our days, you don't find people volunteering, and as long as a volunteer job, that would be okay. There would be a conflict, and the appearance of a conflict, if the individual is getting paid, and that's a no-no.
Right.
So that's totally not
So is
unacceptable.
this person on leave pending the investigation, or are they still working?
No, I'm not going to go into the
No, they're
the
not
detail.
getting. No, they're not on leave, or no, they're not working.
No, they're still working because there's a process that we need to follow, and we need to follow the recommendation of our legal department.
And I think you guys are getting yourself in a lot more trouble by not. I mean, when Roy Vast, there was an accusation against him, he was immediately put on leave pending an investigation, and this person is still out there working pending an investigation. It kind of looks, even if
Well,
it's,
you do recall that with Chief Roy, when there were several accusations. The mayor doesn't react. He's not a reactive individual.
he's too nice.
And what he wanted to do was to wait, and then when it was necessary to put on someone on leave, that's when you take action.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to have other legal issues, that are piling up,
Right.
and I believe that you also have to give certain benefit of the doubt based on the information and investigation that you conduct.
All right, fair enough. I don't like any of those answers, but there it is for the public anyway, and they can decide for themselves. On the line, we do have him, right? I think I see him on the screen. We have James Carras. He's from Harvard University. He also has his own, what is it? Is it a nonprofit that he has, or what is it on the side?
No, James Carras is the principal of Carras Community and Investment. And Mr. Carras joined our team as part of as a consultant. Initially as to prepare a document, a policy document, and basically create a pathway towards the economic prosperity for Lawrence. Initially, the way we started was that Mr. Carras connected the city with the Kennedy School of Government. It's the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, in which we had, our graduate students that did assemble a series of information, did surveys, and also communicated with some of our community stakeholders to prepare a document to guide the city on a pathway towards success.
So he's going to be, because I'm trying to simplify it for my audience, he's going to be kind of liaison between you guys and the state in order to put together policies so that the city can regain control of the school.
Yes, Mr. Carras is in charge of preparing a turnaround plan, but I would like to give him...
Yeah, let's give him a chance. We're talking about him, and he's here. We might as well just let him say it, right?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Carras, thank you for zooming in here on the Paying Attention podcast. I am very excited as a former Lawrence School Committee member to see that the city is probably going to be regaining control of their schools. I see what the state has done over the last few years, and as bad as Lawrence was when Lawrence had the schools, the state has done far worse with the Lawrence schools, so I'm glad to see somebody else is going to be retaking control. Can you just introduce yourself to the audience a little bit in case we didn't do it exactly right, and then kind of tell us what's going on here?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon. And I appreciate the mayor and the city of Lawrence and being able to work with them on a number of different projects, including working on the school transition plan. You did, both of you introduced me correctly. I am a consultant. I have my own consulting firm, as well as I teach at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard for the last, now this is my 10th year coming up this fall. So the issue specifically around the schools and getting them back from state control to the city control, needless to say, it's a complex one. It's not an easy one. The state has controlled the school system for now over 11, 12 years. They have things in place. I'm not here to judge how well the state has done or not done. Certain indicators initially were the schools were improving. During COVID in the past few years, we've seen those benchmarks have been decreasing. But the work ahead is a complex process of transitioning from state control to local control. There are a number of issues that have to be dealt with, and we have been in discussion with the Commissioner of Education's office in terms of what those issues are and what we need to address. And I am working on, in conjunction with the city, a transition plan that we would submit to the Commissioner of Education and hopefully get their agreement to move ahead with a timeline, specific benchmarks, activities that need to take place, and move this forward as quickly as we can. I'll be meeting with the Lawrence Education Alliance Board in September to really officially begin that process. I've been doing a lot of research and preparing a transition plan, but we'll officially kick it off with the Lawrence Education Alliance in September.
I think my first question as a former board member in Lawrence is my biggest frustration with any schools, but especially in Lawrence, is the lack of accountability for teachers, but even more importantly, the lack of accountability for the mid-level administrators who come in and shuffle paper every day and have no accountability at all for what they do, and put all of these policies in place that handcuff teachers in the classroom from being able to, A, discipline their students, which I think is the absolute biggest problem in Lawrence, but also handcuff teachers from being able to teach kids basic stuff. Like, they're so busy teaching them about global warming and transgender bathrooms and all the political stuff that kids are graduating and they still can't read. They still can't write. They still can't get a job. I pulled into Wendy's one day and my bill was $10.25, and I handed the girl a 20, and then I found a quarter after she rang it up, so I handed her the quarter. And you could see the corpuscles in her brain start to explode. She didn't know what to give me back because she'd already rang it in. She had to call her supervisor to do it. So I nicely asked her, like, do you go to school? She said, no, I just graduated from Lawrence High. And I don't blame her. I blame the schools. But you know what? I had a conversation with her on Twitter afterwards. She knew all about gay marriage and transgender bathrooms and global warming. She was very well versed in all the political stuff that she learned in school. But she didn't know how to do math in her head. And to me, that was very, very scary.
So I'll comment on what you brought up initially as the issue of accountability, and that's critical to any system, particularly public systems, and particularly for school systems. And so, how does that take place? Well, it starts from the top, and the top is the superintendent. So, moving it forward with this transition plan, parallel to this is the selection of a new superintendent of schools. By law, that superintendent has to be named by the Commissioner of Education. As the Commissioner of Education, the state controls the schools. They have the authority to name a new superintendent. However, we have the commitment from the Commissioner of Education, the state, that they will listen to the input of the community, the Education Alliance, the school committee, the city council, and certainly the mayor's office as well, in terms of what kind of superintendent do we want in this position as we go through the transition plan? Getting control back to the city is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. It hopefully by next year that it happens, but it's hard to say when that transition will take place. Meanwhile, there'll be a superintendent that comes in. So that superintendent, the values that superintendent needs to have and the strength that superintendent has to have is exactly to what you were talking about, is a level of accountability and making sure that teachers are not burdened with make work responsibilities. So those are the types of things that we're hearing from the community and from some of the key stakeholders, and we want to be able to influence the Commissioner of Education as they make the final selection of a new superintendent until that point when the city finally has control of the school system as well.
Yeah, and Tom, the city also...
Pull your mic up so we can hear you.
Yeah, the city also has a responsibility, and that's why during the campaign, or when we all came together as part of the Brian DePena campaign team, we developed a plan, and in assisting the mayor in looking at different areas of priorities that needed attention, and education obviously was one of them. And most mayors are in municipal government. You have mayors that are running, but they don't have a plan.
Right.
And that's exactly what has been happening, not only in Lawrence, but if you go through the entire state and some of the other states where I work,
everywhere.
You see it everywhere. The people are, you're popular, you're in the community, and that's it. You get elected, but where's the plan?
Right.
And people don't question, and we have to be definite, we have to be firm and demanding plans from our elected official. I would like to just briefly read what Mayor DePena put in his agenda. He states, quote, "My approach for Lawrence Public School is to accelerate the exit of receivership by ensuring that our education system meets sufficient improvement to be removed from the designation as struggling to a high-achieving and innovative institution. To achieve this goal, I will work in partnership with the Lawrence Alliance for Education Board and the newly appointed superintendent to emphasize the continual renewal of the performance indicators to evaluate the extent to which Lawrence Public School has met the school intervention plan and annual goals such as improving school attendance, academic performance, the MCAT, proficiency rates, class sizes, graduate rates, and dropout rates, and parents' engagement, as well as professional development for teachers and administrators."
Parent engagement is the most important thing you just said.
Absolutely. And no, what you also mentioned is the professional development for teachers. Mm-hmm. The fact that you are a teacher in one community is not the same as working with the city of Lawrence. Right. City of Lawrence is a very, very complex community.
It's very unique.
With. It's very unique.
Yeah.
And with its challenges, but what we do know that, the people are willing. And if there's the willingness to do it, and they're very critical, as you know, the mayor is not exempted of criticism, which is good.
They kick the crap out of them every day.
Yeah, it's perfect. And we should be on our toes when it comes to government. But immediately after the mayor was sworn in, the mayor met with the Commissioner of Education, and we discussed during the meetings. They discussed first of all what would be both the mayor and the commissioner agreed that the Lawrence Public Schools need to be removed from state control, and obviously during the conversation they also agree that there were issues in regards to the superintendent. There were issues in regards to not having a turnaround plan or one that is reliable. Third of all, the same issues that you just raised in regards to the teachers, the relationship between teachers and the students. And fourth of all, is there were questions raised why the Lawrence Public School system was not using all of the funds, or at least great portion of the funds, and they were being given back, or not basically being given back, but they were not used.
Right.
And based on that, those concerns, the mayor requested the commissioner of education to take more of an active for the city to take more of an active role and to bring changes at the top. Right. And in this case would be the Lawrence Alliance for Education.
Now, is that what you're calling the school committee right now, or is that a separate thing?
Yes, that's basically it's a separate entity that was created when the state took control.
But they have no power. They're just like an advisory board. In fact, they call me on a regular basis complaining that the mayor never comes to their meetings. And I always say, well, why would he come to your meeting? You've got no power. Like, you guys can talk all night, but you're not going to accomplish anything because you have no power.
I would like to nip this right away in the bud. The criticism that that basically you received, that the mayor was not attending, was one of the issues. Mm-hmm. You cannot be on the board or any board that you're serving the community and using the entity as for political purposes. Mm-hmm. And that's why the mayor brought this to the commissioner's attention, and it was decided that that new blood needed to be injected in the Lawrence Alliance for Education. Mm-hmm. And as you saw, as a result, some of the members were removed, but this was not done unilaterally. Mm-hmm. It was done in conjunction with the state delegation. Under the commissioner's recommendation, we decided to approach our state delegation, and for transparency, so they can also propose candidates, and we finally have a new board now that will be that was necessary to push the initiative of removing the state, or the process of exiting the state control.
Mr. Carras, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you guys are going to face in having this transition? It seems like there are so many insurmountable problems with the Lawrence schools, and it's certainly not the students' fault. And as much as I don't like public school teachers or public school teacher unions, and I don't, it's hard to blame them for everything when their hands are tied on a lot of stuff. They're being pushed this equity, diversity, inclusion stuff that has nothing to do with the basics of math, science, history. It seems like they've gotten very political, and the teachers union also, but it's because it's being pushed from the top down. To me, that seems like the biggest issue, but I'm not there every day, and you're a way smarter guy than I am, and you're way more entrenched in this. Do you agree with that, number one? And number two, what do you think is the biggest challenge in making this transition?
I think the biggest challenge in making the transition is getting all of the diverse stakeholders together in an agreement. All right. You, as you mentioned, you have a teachers union, you have parents, you have the students, you have the city administration, you have a school committee, you have a Alliance for Education, you have the state and the Commissioner of Education. So you have a number of different interests, and all of them have views, have opinions, and have what's important to them. My job and the mayor's job is really to listen to everybody and see how do we bring this all together, and where do we find areas of agreement and agreement in terms of how we move forward. Because if we have 7 different agendas, the success is not going to be, and the impact's not going to take place. So I think, the biggest challenge is the collaboration that's needed and bringing everybody together. But I think we have a process moving forward to do so. It's going to take time, but we need to listen to everybody and bring those thoughts together, and then come up with a plan that everybody can agree to in terms of how this is going to take place. This is complex stuff. Yeah. And let me just add, when we were first asked to look at this, we did a national search in terms of transition plans from school systems around the country, not just Massachusetts, but around the country. And quite honestly, there are not many examples out there in terms of how this takes place. There's not a template. This is something they don't teach in graduate school on how to do. So, what we're using is some common sense, quite frankly, and that is listen to everybody, carefully take everybody's thoughts and opinions in mind, and bring those forward and see if we can come up with an agenda that we can move this forward.
I got two more things for you, because I started with the negative and I should have started with the positive, so let's go to the positive for a minute. What do you think are going to be some of the things that some of the positive improvements once this happens, once you guys have been able to regain control of the schools? What kind of positive improvements will we see right away? What are some of the easier things? We talked about the hard stuff, right? But I'm sure there's going to be some stuff that's going to be able to be done right away that are going to be positive improvements in the schools.
This is my personal opinion. I think the number one thing that you're going to see as a result of this process is a renewed confidence about the future of the Lawrence school system from the students, from the parents, from the teachers, from the administration, from the mayor's office, from the state government as well. I think once this is all done and over with, we all come to an agreement, people will see this as a new day, and there'll be enthusiasm, there'll be confidence we can move forward. So I think that's the number one thing that can be accomplished immediately. Without that, it's going to be difficult to achieve everything else.
Correct, and without hope, there's no future.
Right,
and we have to instill hope in our students to make sure that for sustainability, and they would take charge of their own city in the future. I may disagree with you one thing that you mentioned, Tom, and you and I, we don't disagree always, but it's just a different perspective. Diversity and inclusion is necessary. It becomes, like the other day, I forgot if it was one of the documentaries or it was in the TV show that you saw that in a predominantly black community, it was necessary for them to see black female pilots. It creates hope. The same applies with the city of Lawrence. What we do need to basically educate our children that we don't have to see only Latinos as their educators. And concerning the staff, the professional makeup of the staff, that also helps. So let's say I'm from Aruba. Mm-hmm. You're from Massachusetts, and we go into a community. We're going to work together, but probably you're not familiarized with the culture. Let's say my culture, mm-hmm. and I can educate it using your same strategy, or give you the opportunity to be creative in applying your apprenticeship or your ways of educating and apply it to a new community.
I would almost be okay with all of that if they were doing everything else. If the basics of science, math, English were being handled and the kids were being at least proficient in those things, and then you wanted to add this other stuff because maybe it is good for some kids, but when I see the kids graduating without the basics, but they know all that other stuff because they're still getting all that. To me, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. Let's teach them the basic first. Then when they get that, when they're at that level of proficiency, then if you want to teach them about global warming or diversity, equity, include all that stuff, then we can have that conversation, and I might even be okay with that. But it seems like that's all they're getting right now. And when this becomes city control again, I don't want to see it go back to that. I don't want to see it go back to, okay, now we've got control. We're just going to go back to teaching kids about racism and diversity, because that just divides a community. To me, it does. It divides a community if the kids don't have the basics. Once they have the basics, they can handle those adult concepts.
And there we can agree, because testing doesn't see color.
Right.
Testing doesn't see culture. So we already know that now testing is going to be more challenging. Correct, James?
Yes.
And we need to be prepared, and that's going to happen under the city, hopefully under city control. Mm-hmm. So if we don't have a plan, a well thought of plan then that's not going to happen.
Is the meetings that you're going to be having with all the stakeholders, are those going to be public? Is it going to be like a public hearing for public input? There might be taxpayers in Lawrence who don't have kids in the schools but still have an opinion on these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's going to be a combination, and you know, my history has been to in a number of different projects is to use a variety of ways of gauging what the community is interested in sharing. One is public forums, public meetings, absolutely, you know, and bringing people together. Two is to do what we call focus groups and having a small group of people, you know, 5 or 6 teachers, high school teachers, sit down and have an in-depth conversation. 3 is surveys. People get online or able to pick up their phone and respond to a survey. And 4th is one-on-one interviews with people. So we'll use a variety of methods to do so. But we want to make sure that this is done in conjunction with the mayor's office, with the Alliance for Education Board, and so that this is sponsored by everyone. And again, we're building up this spirit of collaboration. And it's not just our interests from this end and our interests from this end. It's not the commissioner against the, you know, I'm trying to build this spirit of cooperation. Not easy because it's a contentious issue.
It sure
but
is.
right now, I think everybody's looking to move forward and getting that type of input.
We've got a few minutes left. What do you want to convey to the public that you haven't already talked about in the few minutes we have left? What do you want to convey to the public about how this process is going to run and what the results will be, especially when it comes to accountability? Because I'm very big on accountability. I see teachers that are doing some really horrendous things and they never get held accountable.
Yeah, and again, I'm just wind up repeating myself in terms of the process. It's not going to be an easy one, but there will be a process. 2, we're going to emphasize engagement, community engagement, and get as much input as possible. We want to do a lot of listening and hearing. No prejudgment. I come in here. I mean, I'm a kid from Boston. I grew up in Roxbury, went to public schools, so, you know, school of hard knocks, if you will. But I'm not from Lawrence, and I'm not coming in with a preset notion of any of the interests that are there. So we want to listen carefully to as many people as possible. We want to be patient and have a deliberate process, but we also want to move forward because there's a clear goal of the mayor, of the community, of the city council, from the parents. We want to have control back to the city. And we're going to do everything we possibly can do to move that quickly, but at the same time, do it in a way that is inclusive of everyone as well.
What happens if the city regains control of the schools and they don't do a good job? Is there going to be some kind of a stopgap measure where the state at least kind of can come in and partner, or another entity? Maybe we don't want the federal government because that'll be just a total disaster. But maybe a college, maybe Harvard, or maybe some other educational institution that they can partner with to try and bring them up to speed if they're not doing it.
Yeah, and that certainly will be an issue that we have to address, and I really don't have an opinion at this point, but you raise a good point, is that years ago when Chelsea was under state receivership, they did partner with Boston University for a number of years, and this maybe it was 15, 20 years ago, and I have to go think back.
It was probably closer to 30 when John Sobel was there, yeah.
Well, you don't look that old.
Yeah, I'm an old guy.
You know, for you to remember John Silver, you're dating yourself.
Yeah, I am.
So there are precedents like that. I just don't want to. You certainly have to think about that. And I think the state, the education commission that asked that question is like, okay, what if you guys blow this?
Right.
Do we come back in? Do we have a right to come back? That's going to be a negotiable point and discussion. But we want to stay confident and positive that that's not going to happen, and we want to move forward. That we believe that local control, city control, will result in better benchmarks for students.
You sounded like you wanted to say something.
And to reiterate the fact that the mayor is not in a hurry. Okay, we want to do it right. And that's the important. I think James said it, perfectly. We're going to do it until we do it right. at least in our time, during the time that the people have us in office.
Mr. Carras, I really appreciate your time. I know how busy and how important you are. It means a lot to me to have you here to try and educate the public about what's going on, especially since those of us who live outside of Lawrence are paying the freight right now. So I think this is not just important for the people in Lawrence, but it's also important for the people in surrounding communities whose tax money right now are being spent on the Lawrence schools, and they're not, and the state's not really performing that. Do you have any final words for us before we go? If there's anything like I didn't ask that I probably should have?
I think you covered it fairly well, and I'm pleased to have this opportunity to work with the citizens in Lawrence, and look forward to the next few months and getting this done. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Thank you very much for coming, and will you come again once we have something new to report, or once things are gone?
Yes, I would like to say that we're first of all, we need to we're working on a few projects. That is with the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority. We also rely on the expertise of Mr. Carras in developing a master plan for new development in the city, and I think we should have another opportunity to inform the public of all these initiatives.
Yeah, I'd love to have both of you back. Excuse me. I'd love to have both of you back. That would be really tremendous. Yeah. And thank you again so much for your time. I know how busy you are.
Welcome.
And by the way, I'm very impressed, even though you're from Harvard.
How did a kid from Roxbury get there? I have no clue.
Right.
I'm too old to even remember that.
Right,
Thank you. Peace. Take care.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carras. And you can roll up, Octavian. Thank you very much for being here. I also want to thank you for all the stuff that you do people don't hear about, or the things that you do in the mayor's office to help the homeless, that you're helping for families that are having a tough time right now. Some of the ARPA funding.
That's another subject that we need to address.
We would love to have you come in again.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I know that you were pushing very hard for some of this ARPA funding and some of the other funding that you're getting for families that aren't yet homeless, but might be soon because they're having a hard time. Right. And a lot that means a lot. I only wish people in Lawrence knew what was really going on in the mayor's office. You guys need a much better PR guy to get that stuff out, because I think if people knew, I think Brian's approval rating would be much higher.
I'll convey the message to the mayor.
All right, thank you for coming
Appreciate
on.
it.
This has been great. I want to thank our sponsors, JG's Ice Cream, Pleasant Valley Landscaping, AFC Urgent Care, Mercurial Law Office. If you need insurance or any kind of legal stuff, go to Mercurial Office. Clear Path for Veterans New England, Tomo and Shaken Seafood, Morelli's Deli, EIS Investigation, Marsan and Son Construction, McLennan Real Estate, and the Zany Pesci Law Office. Also, thank you to Chrissy, my fine producer, who's going to be doing our music bingo next week, but we'll promote that better next week, raising money for our scholarships for next year's bash. Melvin Taylor says you got to go home, so go home already.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.